John Hathaway, a composer known for his melancholic melodies, sought solace from the bustling city of London. He, his wife Amelia and their daughter Lily escaped to the serene English countryside for a holiday. Laughter filled the air as they strolled hand in hand, the sun casting long shadows on the verdant meadows. It was a picture of perfect familial bliss, a stark contrast to the tragedy that awaited them. As they neared a quaint, ivy-covered bridge spanning a babbling brook, a deafening screech pierced the idyllic tranquility. A runaway lorry, its brakes failing, careened towards them. John watched in horror, paralyzed by the impending doom as the lorry ploughed through the bridge's fragile railing. Time seemed to slow to an agonizing crawl. He lunged for his family, but it was too late. The world erupted in a cacophony of splintering wood, twisting metal and blood-curdling screams. When the dust settled, an eerie silence descended. John found himself lying amidst the wreckage, his body battered and bruised, but alive. His heart pounded in his chest, a frantic rhythm against the stillness of the afternoon. He frantically searched for Amelia and Lily, his voice hoarse from screaming their names. But they were gone, crushed beneath the weight of the fallen lorry. The world John knew had vanished in that horrific instant. His music, once filled with the joy of life, now echoed the hollowness in his soul. He returned to London a broken man, haunted by the memory of that fateful day. Unable to bear the weight of his grief in the city that held so many cherished memories, John decided to leave. He longed for a place of solitude, a sanctuary where he could grieve in peace. Edinburgh, with its grand architecture and brooding charm, called to John. It promised a retreat from the pain of his past, a chance to rebuild his life amidst the city's ancient stones. He packed his belongings, leaving behind the remnants of his former life, and journeyed north. The train journey was a blur of desolate landscapes and mournful skies, mirroring the tempest raging within him. Upon arriving in Edinburgh, John sought refuge in its labyrinthine streets, hoping to lose himself in the city's sombre embrace. He stumbled upon an advertisement for a property rental tucked away in a forgotten corner of a newspaper. Blackwood Manor, it read, stately manor available for immediate let. Long-term tenant preferred. Inquire within. Intrigued by the prospect of solitude and a place to call his own, John contacted the letting agent, a woman named Eleanor Morris. Her face etched with a lifetime of stories greeted him at the manor's rusted gates. Her eyes held a mixture of sadness and empathy as she showed him around the sprawling house. Blackwood Manor was a formidable structure, its once grand facade now weathered and neglected. Dust-covered furniture hinted at a life long gone, and an eerie silence hung heavy in the air. John, however, felt a strange sense of peace within its walls, as if the manor itself understood his sorrow. "It's been vacant for 12 years, Mrs. Morris explained, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the slumbering house. The previous owners, they left rather abruptly. John detected a hint of unease in her tone, but he dismissed it as his own melancholic projections. He agreed to rent Blackwood Manor, hoping to find solace within its time-worn walls. The first few days were filled with the mundane tasks of unpacking and settling in. John tried to ignore the pervasive chill that clung to the manor, attributing it to the building's age and neglect. As days turned into nights, however, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was not alone. Floorboards creaked beneath his feet, even when he knew he was the only soul within the vast house. Doors slammed shut with no explanation, their sounds echoing like mournful cries through the empty corridors. One evening, as John sat in the dimly lit drawing room attempting to compose, he heard the distinct sound of water running. He followed the sound to the upstairs bathroom. his heart pounding with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. To his astonishment, he found the bathtub overflowing, the taps running at full blast. John quickly turned off the water, his mind racing to find a logical explanation. He had not touched the taps of that, he was certain. Sleep offered little respite from the unsettling events. John's dreams were plagued by nightmares, vivid and disturbing. He would wake in a cold sweat, the feeling of an unseen presence lingering in the room. He tried to convince himself that it was his grief playing tricks on his mind, but deep down he knew something was amiss within the walls of Blackwood Manor. John started noticing other, more unsettling occurrences. One evening, while working in his makeshift studio in the attic, he felt a cold spot directly behind him. Turning around, he saw nothing but a faint shimmer in the air, like heat rising from an unseen fire. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving John with a sense of unease that clung to him like cobwebs. He began to hear whispers, soft and indistinct, carried on the drafts that snaked through the manor. They seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, murmuring secrets in a language he couldn't understand. The whispers were always present, a constant background hum to his existence, but whenever he tried to focus on them, they would dissipate into the ether. One night, unable to sleep, John wandered the darkened corridors of the manor. He was drawn by an inexplicable pull to a room at the end of the hallway, a room he hadn't noticed before. The door was slightly ajar, and a sliver of pale moonlight illuminated the dust-covered floorboards. Hesitantly, John pushed the door open, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was small and cramped, its only window boarded shut, shrouding it in perpetual darkness. A musty odour hung in the air, thick with the scent of decay and forgotten memories. In the centre of the room stood a solitary object, a child-sized rocking chair, its paint peeling and its seat worn smooth with age. As John stepped closer, he felt a cold spot directly beneath his feet, and the whispers he had been hearing grew louder, swirling around him like a chilling breeze. Section 5. The Ghost of Blackwood Manor. John stared at the rocking chair, his breath catching in his throat. He could have sworn he saw it move just slightly, as if rocked by an invisible hand. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through his sorrow. He stepped back, his heart pounding against his ribs like a frantic drummer. That night the whispers turned into a distinct sob, the unmistakable cry of a child. It seemed to come from the room with the rocking chair. John sat up in bed, his blood turning to ice. He couldn't ignore it any longer. He had to confront whatever was haunting Blackwood Manor. He crept down the hallway, each creaking floorboard sounding like a death knell in his ears. The sobbing grew louder as he approached the room. With trembling hands he pushed open the door. The rocking chair was moving, swaying back and forth as if a child were pushing off the floor, but the room was empty. Then he saw it, a faint, translucent figure hovering near the chair. It was the ghostly form of a young boy no older than 10, with sad eyes and waterlogged clothes clinging to his frail frame. The boy turned his sorrowful gaze upon John, and a single word escaped his spectral lips: "Help me." John stumbled back, his mind reeling. He wasn't imagining things. Blackwood Manor was haunted not just by some unknown entity, but by the ghost of a child. Shaken to his core, John sought out Eleanor Morris, hoping she could shed some light on the haunt. Tending to her garden, her weathered face creased with concern as he recounted the night's events. "The boy," she whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and sadness. "I feared as much." Anna had been shrouded in rumours of a tragic past. Locals whispered of a family torn apart by greed and deceit, their secrets buried deep within the manor's walls. A young boy, she told him, had years ago, and his spirit was said to linger within the house searching for peace. Determined to uncover the truth and help the young ghost find peace, John delved into the history of Blackwood Manor, poring over dusty old documents and faded photographs, piecing together the puzzle of the past. He discovered that the manor had once belonged to the Lawrence family, a wealthy and influential clan, by scandal and tragedy. John learned about Peter Lawrence, a young boy who had lived in the manor with his parents in the early 1900s. Peter had disappeared mysteriously. The newspapers at the time hinted at foul play, but the case was never solved. John felt a chill run down his spine. Could this be the ghost haunting Blackwood Manor? Driven by a need to help the young ghost and uncover the truth, John decided to hold a séance. He persuaded a reluctant Eleanor to join him, and together they contacted a renowned medium from the city. The séance took place in the manor's old drawing room. The air crackled with anticipation as the medium, a frail woman with piercing blue eyes, went into a trance. Her voice when she spoke was not her own, but that of a young boy, filled with a chilling innocence. "I am Peter," the voice echoed through the room, "and I'm trapped." Peter's spirit revealed the harrowing truth of his demise. He had been a sickly child, his frail health a constant source of worry for his parents. Unbeknownst to Peter, his father, a ruthless businessman, had taken out a substantial life insurance policy on his son, hoping to profit from his untimely death. One fateful night, as Peter lay sleeping in his room, his father crept in, his eyes filled with a chilling coldness. He smothered his own son with a pillow, his heart hardened by greed and ambition. Peter's last memory was of his father's face, twisted in a grotesque parody of grief as he pretended to discover his son's lifeless body. The revelation sent a shiver down John's spine. He had uncovered a tale of unimaginable cruelty, of a father who could betray his own flesh and blood for financial gain. Further investigation revealed a shocking twist. Peter's father, seeking to cover his tracks and secure his ill-gotten gains, had switched his deceased son with an orphan boy from a nearby orphanage. The orphan, also named Peter, grew up believing he was the true heir to the Lawrence fortune, while the real Peter's body lay hidden within the bowels of Blackwood Manor. John and Eleanor discovered an old well on the manor grounds, long sealed and forgotten. A sense of dread washed over them as they realized the well's significance. With the help of local authorities, they broke the well's seal, the stench of decay assaulting their senses. Deep within its depths, they found the skeletal remains of a child-sized shoe still clinging to a bony foot. The evidence pointed to the unthinkable. Peter's father, who had gone on to become a respected senator, was a cold-blooded killer. Armed with this knowledge, John sought to confront the senator, to expose his dark secret and bring justice for Peter. The senator, now an elderly man, lived a life of luxury and privilege in a sprawling mansion overlooking the city. He was a pillar of society, revered for his philanthropy and political prowess. John, however, saw through the facade, recognizing the monster lurking beneath. John's attempts to expose the senator were met with resistance and threats. The senator, using his influence and power, managed to silence anyone who dared to question his past. John, however, refused to be intimidated. He was determined to see justice served for Peter and for the countless others who had suffered at the senator's hands. Fate, it seemed, had other plans. On the anniversary of Peter's death, a fire erupted at Blackwood Manor. Flames engulfed the old house, consuming its secrets and its sorrow in a fiery inferno. John barely managed to escape with his life, the screams of the past echoing in his ears as he watched the manor burn. The senator, upon hearing of the fire and realizing that his past sins were in danger of being exposed, suffered a fatal heart attack. Justice, it seemed, had been served, albeit in a most unexpected way. With Blackwood Manor reduced to ashes, John felt a sense of closure. He left Edinburgh, carrying the weight of Peter's story with him. He knew that some wounds never truly heal, but he also knew that the truth, however painful, had a way of setting things right. Before leaving the ruins of Blackwood Manor, John found a small, ornate music box amidst the debris. It was charred and blackened, but miraculously still intact. As he wound its key, a hauntingly familiar melody filled the air, a melody filled with both sadness and hope. It was the same melody he had heard Peter humming in his ghostly form. John realized then that Peter's spirit was finally at peace. He carried the music box with him, a reminder of the tragic tale of Blackwood Manor and the young boy who haunted its halls. And though the manor was gone, the memory of Peter Lawrence and the haunting melody of the music box lived on, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the haunting nature of the past.